Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3:00 p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
And lo and behold, I was placed on leave restriction. So I am definitely a stickler of coming to work now because of Sherelle. So leadership has panned out in my life today. I have use or lose, and I'm taking 2 weeks of vacation courtesy of Sherelle. So leadership goes well with me.
Okay, Derek.
Well, I don't know if I have any humorous stories. I have a lot of stories, but I don't know if any stories I can really tell.
Right.
But one of the things when I think about being a leader, when I think of Sherelle, certain qualities that come to mind. The first being honesty and integrity. I think as any employee that's going to, any employee that is actually looking to follow somebody, following a leader, they want to follow somebody they feel is honest and has integrity. And I think if anybody knows Sherelle is some type of person that will tell you that how it is. She's always been like that, and you appreciate that from your supervisor, from your leader. She's also as high in integrity. One of the things I always remember her saying is she loves her good government job, and she is not going to do anything to jeopardize her good government job. So as an employee, you hear that, you realize that she's not going to put you in a position to jeopardize your job as well. So you have to appreciate that about your leader. And also she inspires others. I think definitely inspired me. Being the agency that I was with, it wasn't really a lot of minorities in leadership positions. And to see Sherelle in that type of position definitely inspired her staff, and as her staff, we wanted to make sure that we did everything we could to make her look good. And that was one of her sayings as well. And she always used to tell us, you make me look very good. So we definitely tried to do that.
Yes.
So, we still do.
Exactly. And of course, sense of humor. Working in an environment that's fast-paced could be stressful. To have a supervisor that can find lights in any type of situation is always a plus, and she was always able to do that for us. Great communicator. She could at the drop of a dime, she could talk to anybody at any level. Like she said, she always stayed prepared. So if she didn't know the topic, you couldn't tell when she started talking about the topic.
Make up stuff as you go along.
Exactly.
Because if you come to work dressed nice, they think you smart, right?
And confidence is a big one as well. And anybody that knows Sherelle knows that she just eludes confidence, and that kind of permeates throughout her staff as well. We feed off of that confidence from her. And as I can't think of a supervisor that I've worked with in the past or present or currently that exudes that type of confidence. It makes you want to do that much better as well. So.
Say it. I like it.
And then raise the ball.
Yes.
5 more times.
Okay, Tanya Lee.
So, working for Sherelle, the best way that I can describe it is a beautiful disaster. She has sent me home crying twice, and I'm not a crier. I'm not. So, but one of the most profound things that she has ever said to me, she was like, when I'm finished with you, you gonna be the best goddamn supervisor. I said, wait a minute. I said, Sherelle, suppose I don't want to do that anymore. She said, it don't matter what you wouldn't do, it's what you gonna do. And Tanya Lee, you gonna come in here, you gonna do this work, and you gonna do it right. I said, okay. That's where I'm at. I just do the work right. Go on, Sin.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Thank you.
A little messy.
So, like I said, I have so many stories to tell, but I will say I'm that employee who learns from other people's experiences with working with Sherelle. So, I'm similar to Denise, where when I give Sherelle something, she always say I give her way too much. So she will call me back and I'll say, Cindy, 1 page. Cindy, 5 sentences. So she's that. And I'm like, okay, I got it. Don't call me no more to tell me you're running late or leaving, whatever. So my story is similar to Denise. But I have learned from other people's experience because Sherelle's just that supervisor. When she make an example out of one, everybody takes heed to it and responds accordingly. And so, and even with all these stories, I must say, people still want to work for Sherelle. Even with the PIPs and the leave restrictions and the shutting you down, people still want to work for her. But I always let people know, that's the outside. That's what you see. And you see everybody happy, smiling, working hard, doing what's expected. That's because she made an example out of a lot of people. People have learned from other people's experiences. So when people say, oh, I want to come work for Sherelle, I always kind of put that warning sign out, caution sign to them to say, you will lose your good government job fooling with Sherelle. And people don't always process it, but I think it sink in because sometimes they don't end up over on this side because they want to keep their good government job. I guess, like you mentioned, Sherelle want to keep hers. So yeah, and that's true. And I will add that I'm still waiting for her to write this book, and we talk about this because I tell her there's only 2 people in my life that can say whatever they want to people. Because you heard some of these stories, some of these things. If a supervisor probably said that to you out in the world, you're probably like, oh no, they didn't. You'll probably just lose your job, right? But not with Chicago here, not with Sherelle here. In your mind, you might be thinking about what you coulda, shoulda, woulda did, but you're not gonna do it. So I always tell her it's only her and my father are 2 people that can say whatever they want to people, and they receive it, and they may not like it at the time, but she can still go to happy hour with them after putting them on a PIP, after putting them on leave restrictions. Yeah. So if that was the plan, she's gonna stick to the plan and still take you out after work. So I just don't see how she does that. Yes.
Okay, so just so you know, right? Because it don't be personal, right?
It's not.
And one of the things I do as a leader is I make sure that I develop relationships with people. Because once you develop a relationship with people, they then know that it's not personal, right? And then I also give people every opportunity to self-correct. Right? I don't leave people wondering what the expectations are. I don't leave people, out there, she said this, did she mean that? I say what I mean and I mean what I say. And I have multiple conversations with people, and I always like to put it in a way that we're in this together, right? And I always say before the leave restrictions, before the PIPs, I always say, if you don't get yourself together, I'm going to have to put you on a PIP. Or I'm going to have to put you on leave restrictions. So it's not like it comes out the blue and people just are not expecting it, right? But I think sometimes, Shelly, some people, they just keep pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope. And a lot of times when I put people on PIPs and leave restrictions, it's not to terminate them. It's to correct the behavior, right? Because one of the things I don't want to do is see people unemployed. And I know that if you work with people, people will eventually start to work with you. Yep. And so I try my best to help people self-correct. Now, I know that I'm very direct with people, and the current job that I have now, the comedy in the office is if she call you in the office until you close the door.
No, your tagline is you bring the phone and then you say, "Come see me," and we try to figure out what the "come see me" mean. Like, what? So, which "come see me" is this? So typically, what I do is I come see her, but I peek around the corner to see what her face looking like, who else is in the office, cause you don't know what you about to get, and I be ready. I be like, okay, what kind of come see me is this?
And it's so funny because, every job we have peers, right? And everybody who know me, Derek and I worked in the office, and this lady told me, this was the first time I heard this in the workplace. This lady we used to have to do these reports, and they would do every Friday. And then we would have a staff meeting on Friday, and I was the only one who would turn my report in on time. And this lady called me an overachiever, right? And it was the first time V called me an overachiever. It was the first time I'd heard that in the workplace. And ever since then, I now recognize myself as an overachiever. And so last week in the office, at the staff meeting, my supervisor was like, she said at the meeting, "I want to thank Sherelle for being the only one who turned in her stuff and did exactly what we needed her to do." And I was like, oh, here we go. And so then somebody else in the office had sent out this email saying that they needed some nominations for an award. And so I sent in my nomination for somebody on my team, and the guy was saying in the same meeting, "I want to thank Sherelle for turning in a nomination." And so afterwards, this guy came to my office, and Cindy was in my office, and he was clowning me about it. He was like, "Oh, let me find out. This was the Sherelle show today." He was like, "The queen that can't do no wrong, the queen of the world. Here, let me rub your hand so somebody can rub off on me." And so, one of the things I realized is people like to connect to you. Even if you're a leader, they want to feel some type of connection, right? And so I'm one of the few leaders in my organization who walk around and speak to people in the morning. Every day, right? And people like that. And one day, if I don't happen to get to do that, people notice. And people, come to me and say, "Oh man, I didn't see you come through this morning." And it's something as simple as that and small as that employees, not only the ones on my team, but the ones in the office who can really appreciate that. And so being an effective leader, I won't even call it good or bad. It's just about being effective, right? So it's so many people who want to just be on my team. Just because I come around and speak to them and ask them, how was your weekend? How did it go? Ask them about their families. Because it doesn't really take long, right? It takes me about 15 minutes to do a clean sweep of the entire floor. And so people really enjoy that. And so I like to ask the panel, what is it that, other than what the funny stories you've told, let's talk about what some ineffective leadership looks like, because I think it's important for our audience who are leaders to really do some self-reflection and understand what ineffective leadership looks like. So I'm going to start with Tanya Lee.
Okay. So some examples of ineffective leadership that I've seen is we shouldn't have to funnel through many channels to get the work done. Another example of ineffective leadership that I've seen recently is don't diminish your employees. They're going to be more effective and want to work with you and for you if you build them up. And especially if you diminish them in front of their colleagues. Don't do that. That's not a win-win for anybody. So for me, the one thing that I can say that I respect about you is you do build us up in front of one another.
Okay, so let's go to Derek, because Derek hit on some key things, and I want to make sure that we are able to capture some of the ineffective things that he's experienced throughout his career.
Yes, I think the biggest thing that I've experienced as far as ineffective leadership is the lack of communication. And you get supervisors that don't know how to interact with their staff. And like you said, I think one of the benefits, or one of the great things that you did when I was working with you, you were able to analyze the skill set of your employees. You knew how to put them in situations to succeed and to grow as employees. You took us out of our comfort zone and put us in an uncomfortable zone where we had to grow and grow and progress as employees. A lot of supervisors and leaders, they lack that aspect of leadership right there. They don't know the skill set of their employees. They don't know how to analyze their employees. They don't know how to put their employees in a position to succeed. The lack of communication also, they use things like PIPs and reprimands as a way to communicate with their employees. And I think that's just, as a leader, I think that's the wrong way to go about communicating with your employees, is using discipline to try to communicate with them. That's one of the main things I see as far as ineffective leadership, is this the lack of communication and knowing the skill sets of your employees.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to switch back over here to Cindy, because she always says certain things about me in terms of, so Cindy, when I first met her, she worked for an organization, and she worked for that organization for like 15 years, and I literally had to pull her from the organization and say, no, you can do this. And she was like, but I'm not. I'm like, I know. And I don't know. I said, I know, but it's not like you can't learn it. And I'm going to make sure that you learn it, because one of the things as a leader that I don't ever want to do is put people in positions to fail, right? Because me being an overachiever, it's important for people who work for me to achieve. And I don't ever want to put anybody in a situation to fail. So Cindy, can you share with our audience some of the experiences you've had in terms of being put in positions to develop?
Yes. So for me, the whole time people was talking, I'm thinking to myself, for Sherelle, normally we hire people for what they know. Sherelle is one of those supervisors that hires someone for what they don't know, given, let me put this out, so she ain't hiring untechnical, competent people, but given that you're willing to learn, grow, and develop, that, so to speak, I use the term too, that you use the brain that God put between your two ears. And you know more than your name when you come to work. So I will say Sherelle is that supervisor that have hired me after the first stands together, 2 other times for what I did not know, not so much for what I did know. So even when I left the agency we initially connected at, and she asked me to come to the new agency, and I was completely terrified because everything that she had discussed with me, I did not know. Didn't even know what the acronym of no disrespect to my veterans, because I love you, what a vet was. So, but for her to be willing to give me the opportunity, and mind you, my father was pushing me along too, because he never met this lady, but he loved her. He loved her. So whatever she said, do it. Just because she said, that's what go with her. Do it. Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And so he pushed me over. She had already got me to the ledge to get me out that door, but he pushed me over the threshold so I could join her. In the areas that I had responsibility for, I had no clue of what I was doing. But mind you, within a year later, I was recognized at the highest honor of DHS Secretary's Award for being the Veterans Program Manager for DHS. And a lot of the vet program managers came to me for information, but that spoke volumes. And I knew, because she is that overachiever, that I couldn't let her down for what she had done for me. I was grateful, and that was my way of letting her know how thankful I was, by doing my best, being my best, and going above and beyond. Because I know it helped me in the long run, because I still got 20 more years to work.
And I have 44 months and 15 days.
Cindy, why you said so?
Yes, we hear that.
She famous.
Cindy, you should not have said
that you don't know how to do. And she says, you will do it because I know that you can do it. And I'll be like, okay.
So Mimi, share your experience with that. I know you and I started out a little rocky. I know that you had, what you don't know is, and this is the first time I'm revealing this to her, is what you don't know is you know somebody that I know somebody, we know somebody in common, right? And you had already decided that you weren't gonna like me when I showed up, right? And so the first day that I showed up, well, the day I came in, she wasn't at work, right? And we worked in a small office, so it's not like, you know, somebody new can show up and you don't notice them, right? It was only like 14 of us in this enclosed space, so it's not like somebody can show up and you wouldn't notice that they were there. And the first time when she came to work and I saw her, she didn't even speak, right? I was like, here we go. And so, Mimi, talk to our audience about, your experience with that.
Well, one of my biggest challenges was trying to understand what Sherelle meant when it says transactional. I always felt like I'm coming to work to do my work. So what is transactional? I need to go past transactional. And I've never had someone telling me everything I do is just a reoccurring basis. You have to go outside of the scope of what I was doing. And it had to deal with dealing with reports. And I'm like, well, here go the numbers. This is just a brief summary. And she said, well, I'm briefing the VP about these reports. So it needs to be a VP level. And I'm like, well, what is a VP level? I'm like, this is the information I have. Well, this is kindergarten level. I was like, well, who are you to tell me it's kindergarten level? But I have to say, eventually, it didn't take me long, probably a day or so. I started Google, asking other individuals, okay, well, how do we put this report together? How do I do a pie chart that is VP level, that's high level, just to do a description of what the report is, to sell the report based on analytics. And that was new. And I'm like, I already had a one-on-one with you telling you that I want to do HRIT. Why are you telling me about doing analytics? That was not part of that's not what I'm trying to do. But I quickly learned that Sherelle was a numbers person, and I had to make sure numbers sell. And it was really good. It was just high level. So that was one encounter. But then, one thing I can say about Sherelle is she also, from taking away the work perspective, she also is a good individual to work with from a work life, because she recognized when it's time for you to leave work and to deal with family, to take care of your kids, to take care of your husband, spending time. So she's also a great mentor. And that you don't get from too many supervisors, right? Because they just come to work and like, okay, they don't care if you're there. They don't ask no questions. So with her, she makes herself available where you can really speak to her, not only about work, but then going into your personal life. So, and that's not available from too many supervisors, because they're just who they are.
And one of the things I've learned over a course of a 28-year career is the more you say to people who work for you that you don't want to know about their personal life, the more they tell you. and it's important to know that, as a leader, we have to sometimes know when to follow, right? And we have to have those people who work for us who feel completely comfortable and telling us about who we are as leaders and where we need to self-correct, right? And so Connie laughing because she knows she that person in my life. Connie is definitely that person in my life who felt completely comfortable and helping me self-correct as a leader. So, Connie, why don't you tell them how you took on that role?
Okay. First of all, let me say this. I had heard about Sherelle before I knew Sherelle. At one agency where I worked at some years ago, Sherelle had worked there before me. So I had heard her name, but I never met her. And in the HR field is small, and most people know people. And when I went to the agency where Sherelle became my supervisor, the day that I did orientation, Kiki and I sat next to each other. And I found out, see, she didn't even remember. I found out that she was Sherelle's sister. And I said, I've always heard her name, but I never knew her. So I was there for a few months, and then Sherelle came. One thing, Sherelle said it, but people didn't say it, so let me say this, you know she's a diva. But anyway, so Sherelle came to be my supervisor, and we had this employee. She was a long-term employee, had been there for years, and she was doing her work wrong. And Sherelle was going to put her on a PIP. So the employee said, I'm not with that. So she found a new job, and she was getting ready to leave. So came time for her going away and a celebration or event. And Sherelle, she can get fed up pretty quick. And her philosophy is, I'm not about no foolishness. So Sherelle, I said, Sherelle, are you going to the going away? No, I'm not going to that. Well, Sherelle, you have to go. You are her manager, and you have to say something. She was like, you know how she rolled her eyes. So.
Did she drop the pen?
She didn't drop the pen. She conformed. She listened. Now, that's one thing that I can say about Sherelle. She does listen. And she is open to constructive criticism and will self-correct. I appreciate Sherelle as a leader because of her directness. I can deal with that. I like it when you establish the expectations up front. I can deal with that. I could deal with, the boldness, and as it's been said, she is full of confidence. And, with that, you can follow that a person as a leader, and she's relationship. Individuals have to know their boundaries, to know that, she is my leader, and I have to deal with her and respect her as such, because sometimes it becomes when a person, when you can deal with them just from a relationship perspective, people can misconstrue that and think that, we're friends. But first and foremost, she is a leader. And I just want to say that I believe that God puts people in our lives for a reason and for a season. With Cindy and Mimi, as you were talking, and as you guys were talking about, not necessarily the conflict, but just the things that you've dealt with Sherelle, because a lot of times we don't want to deal with stuff, and we don't want people to criticize us, but if we're open to receive that, it's only going to make us better.
Yes. So what Derek doesn't realize is he said like a mouthful in a short period of time, right? And he hit on a couple things that I could just really relate to each relationship that I have with each individual on this panel. And so one of the things he talked about is integrity, right? And the seriousness I have about keeping my good government job. And so I would like for Denise to share an instance that we had in the workplace when one of our student interns was not doing what he was supposed to do. And the conversation I had with her about that.
Okay, so my first round of employment with Sherelle, I'm on board. I am the student program manager for the entire agency. And this particular student also happened to have a somewhat familial type of relationship with Sherelle as well. And I was responsible for obtaining all of the necessary documentation, transcripts, etc., and doing what needed to be done. I continued to give this particular student additional chances. And I was letting Sherelle know what was going on, but then at a certain point, Sherelle just said, Denise, you're the student program manager. You're going to need to make a decision. This is in an inspector general's office. You know what is expected, et cetera, et cetera. So I got that. I had a little bit of heartburn because I was like, okay, now I have to be the bad person. But I did just step up and had to let him know, time's up. You don't have the documentation. I have to turn this over to Sherelle, and that's just what happened. And he was no longer.
Lost his good government job.
He was no longer with the agency. His appointment did end, but with all of that, again, when I came on board to the agency as well as to work with Sherelle, integrity has to be upheld. And Sherelle is the leader who is going to make sure no matter what, sometimes you do have to not be the bad guy, but you have to let it be known what is acceptable, unacceptable, and you have to be held accountable. And I didn't feel bad afterwards. Because it was a lesson learned for me too. I was trying to be nice, and that just came to an end at a certain point. And action was taken. The student was held accountable, and we moved on. And as a leader, I first and foremost, I have to say, I've always looked at Sherelle from the first day I came into the office for the interview. I saw the position she held. I was so impressed. And I looked at her immediately as a leader, which is what she's always been to me, first and foremost, friend, mentor, coach to follow. But that was an incident where I did have a little heartburn about it, and Sherelle just dropped the hammer and said, "No, you got to make a move, basically." Yeah. And it was done, and and I just continued managing the student program, and I knew from that point on, Denise, you cannot continue to give chance after chance. Do not let this be a repeat, because then you're going to be in the hot seat.
So, as a leader, for me, it's important to, one of the things a lot of leaders don't want to do is make those hard decisions, right? They don't want to make hard decisions. They don't want to have those tough conversations. And for me, I don't shy away from that. Not because I enjoy them, but I find that having those hard conversations and making those hard decisions are appropriate. And people can respect you. They may not necessarily like it, but they respect you more because they know it's not personal. They know that when you have to make those decisions, that you make those decisions based off the fact that it needed to be made. And again, when you establish relationships with people, it helps when you have to make those hard decisions, because again, they know that it's not personal. And so as Cindy mentioned, when it's time to go to happy hour, people know that when I leave the office, I leave the office. I don't try to mix both together. And when I leave the office, I'm still, we at happy hour, I'm still talking about what you haven't done correctly on the job. I just let that go. And I think it was Cindy who also mentioned, or T, who mentioned about, work-life balance. Mm-hmm. Right. Oh, that was Mimi. Work-life balance is very important for my team, because one of the things I know for sure is if people don't balance their personal life with their work life, then they're not going to give you all that you need them to give in their work life. Exactly. And so I encourage my team to, step away from the job. And not only do I encourage them to do it, I model the behavior, right? Mm-hmm. So all you all out there who got all of the jokes about the Tommy jokes and she ain't got no job and she always on vacation. When I step away from the office, I step away from the office. I don't call. I don't email. I don't take any text messages related to work. I step completely away from the job, because I know that when I step away from my job, that I need a break, right? I have 25 people who report directly to me, and when I leave the workplace at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. because people need a lot from me in the office. If it's not work related, it's personal related. And I make myself available to everybody on my team for whatever that they need, but it's draining for me. And I want to be able to show up every day available to my team. And so when I take off, I take off. I don't do anything else. And one of the things I don't do is oftentimes in my current position, when I take off, I leave Cindy and Mimi in charge. And whatever they do when I'm gone is done, right? I don't come back and say, you should have did it this way, or you should have did it that way, or you should have made this decision or that decision. In fact, one time I went on vacation, and when I came back, they had fired somebody. And when I came back, they said to me, she had to go. I said, okay. I didn't say, why'd you fire her? You shouldn't have did it that way. I didn't say none of that, because when you leave people in charge, you need to let them be in charge, right? And they took that seriously. And when I came back, she was gone. So while they talking about me, you will lose your good government job fooling with Cindy and Mimi.
Because they be harder than her.
And I used to leave Cindy in charge, right? But then her and Mimi decided they were going to team up. And that they now are one. So now when I put my out of office on, I say Cindy and Mimi, got you. And so, it's all about, making the workplace the best environment, right? And so when we were working at one particular organization and Shelly was on my team, one of the things I noticed about Shelly is how beautiful she is, right? And I knew that she just needed somebody to encourage her, right? And I knew that, at some point, employees are only doing what they are allowed to do. And so I knew that I had to be the one to step in and start to encourage her. And so Shelly, even to this day, she'll call me and say, I need some advice. How should I handle this at work? And I'm like, Shelly, do that work. Because one thing I know is when you step in at work and you become that team player without complaint, people take notice. And you start to get recognized, you start to get promotions, and you start to get things that are rightfully yours because you have stepped up and you didn't complain. And they already know that Susie ain't doing her job. You don't need to tell them that. They already know that. They've been dealing with Susie for the last 20 years. And so Shelly has come a long way. Like Shelly has, matter of fact, Shelly, why don't you tell them? Like Shelly told y'all about the leave restriction and about how she has use or lose now. Shelly, why don't you share with our audience some of the text messages that you often send us about how you feel about where you are in your career?
Well, Sherelle, Mimi, and T. Lee, and then 3 others, Rita Moss, Whitney, and Amelda has played a significant role in my life. HR is all I know. I started as a GS2. I took a setback by resigning at one time, and I got back into the federal government. And when Sherelle came to the agency I was working at, it was just all of that. We were all terrified of Sherelle, but we knew she meant business. And so for that, the issues occurred, but they had already been there, but I was walking on eggshells basically, and then she just cracked the egg open and just made me who I am today. And so I have been promoted since then at my new job. I come to work, I do my work, and I am who I am today because of Sherelle and the others at OPIC. And I just love these ladies, and they are just a phone call away. And if it's anything I need, I know that I can call them and ask them. And so they are so dear to my heart.
And I want to take this time me and Sherelle have discussed this a couple of times. I just want to take the time to say, Shelly, we are so proud of you.
Yes.
Because we walked into a situation where we were like, dang, Shelly could come over here and run rings around these people. You know what I mean? But we're proud of the fact that not only did you take the time to listen to what we said, but, you know, you recognize that we only want the best for you. We only wanted the best for you, and we are so proud of you.
Thank you.
And you know, the other thing with Shelly is, Shelly and I had this conversation. She was like, why you won't hire me over there? And I was like, because I don't have nothing for you, right? I was like, I think you on a great trajectory in your career, and coming over here will only stifle you. And she was like, but I want to come over there with y'all. I'm like, I don't have nothing for you. And so, you know, for me, while I enjoy working with each person that I've had the opportunity to work with, I'm not the type of leader who want to keep people in a box. You know, I want people to grow, and I try to put people in the best possible situation so that they can grow. And Shelly is one of those people that is outside the box now, and I don't want to put her back in the box. And for the type of jobs that I hire for, would be putting her back into a box, and I don't think that's in her best interest. And so I just won't do it. And so I've had people who worked for me before Deontay, who I told, you will never work for me again. And she said, I don't care what you say, I'm going to work for you again. So,
Well, I missed them.
but yet here we are, still connected.
Yes.
And of course, it's now 5 minutes to 4. The hour has gone by yet again so fast. But one of the things I want to say is I am passionate about being a leader. I take my responsibility very seriously, and I am committed to making sure people develop and get what they deserve in terms of progressing in their career. I'm also passionate about helping other minorities move ahead in this world, because if we don't learn to stick together, we know what we see in the workplace, how they help each other. And if we don't do that, shame on us. Yeah. And with that, I would like to say thank you all for coming. Thank you for the laughs. Thank you for the honesty. Thank you for the transparency. And I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. So I will see you all next Sunday. Sharon will be back. I'm not sure what our show is about next week because I don't have notes like Sharon usually does. But I'm going to show up and I'm a free flow it, and you're going to think I knew all along since like this Sunday what the show is about. So don't forget, tune in next Sunday on listenvisionlive.com. Every one of our shows is also immediately posted to YouTube. So make sure you tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you.
Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle, and Sherelle Higgins.